Hi everyone, I'm back again with another movie review, and even though I said last time I was going to do Sicario 2, Day of the Soldado, it's school holidays here in Australia, and with Ant-Man and the Wasp coming out, it was too much of a lure for me and the family to go and see that. So we're going to do our usual thing, which is it worth seeing? Then I talk a little bit about the film and then do spoilers. So the first thing is, should you go see it? Yes, definitely. This is a really fun film, though it is small in ambition and therefore much lighter than, like, especially if you've come out of Black Panther or Infinity War. So for those reasons, I think it's really worth seeing, and especially it is aimed at a bit of a more family-oriented age. So you could really take very young children to this. There is some violence, but it's, pretty fun, and there's a young girl in it, and yeah, I don't think that would be a problem. So is it worth seeing? Yes, go see it in the cinema. I think it'd be a fun day out. The second thing, just so you know, is there are 2 post-credit scenes, and one of them is mid and one is right at the end. The one which is mid is really worth seeing. I won't tell you anything about it, but I think you should stay for that. The one right at the end is not really worth it. So that's it for whether you should see it or not. I'll be back in a second and then we'll get into the film. Okay, bye. Okay, so Ant-Man and the Wasp is a sequel to Ant-Man, which is all within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it's directed by Peyton Reed. Now, Peyton Reed is one of those directors who you probably don't know his name, but when you say some of his films, you go, oh, I really like those films. He's really got a light touch. So the first time I knew him was when he did a cheerleading film, which I think was called Bring It On or something like that. And I really enjoyed it, not knowing anything about cheerleading. And then, of course, he's done a few other things, and then he's done Ant-Man, which was a real sleeper hit. Came out of nowhere. Really, no one was going, I really want an Ant-Man film. And, of course, it was a bit controversial because Edgar Wright was going to do it, and I'm the biggest Edgar Wright fan. And then Peyton Reed came through, and I didn't even see it in the pictures because I went, oh, this will be a hack job. Saw it later on cable, loved it, and then I've gone straight away to see Ant-Man and the Wasp. So the big thing here is you have a real interesting challenge for Marvel. So it's a sequel, but it's a sequel which delivers the kind of the origin story, I guess, for want of a better word, for the Wasp. And really, if you think about it, in Marvel, there hasn't been an origin story for a female superhero. The closest is probably Black Widow, but you don't really get the origin story. She's just been very prominent in the Avengers. So, but this one, really, Evangeline Lilly, as the Wasp, goes to the top of the pack. And there's a very interesting dynamic because, of course, Ant-Man and the Wasp is one of the oldest Marvel comics there are. And they were originally in the Avengers. And I think the Wasp was maybe the leader. And then it kind of died down a bit, and then this is the reinvention, because originally the Ant-Man and the Wasp were Hank Pym, who's Evangeline Lilly's father, played by Michael Douglas in this, and then they co-opt Paul Rudd in Ant-Man, and it all kind of gets going. So this is a sequel, so you've got the universe kind of established, the Ant-Man universe, and then what do you do with it? So the first one was like a heist film. Now the second one is you're still playing with all those tropes that the Ant-Man is a thief. He's got like thiefy kind of, that's his skill set. But they've kind of doubled down on putting in a few different plot mechanisms. But really, if you think about it, all the plot is really just designed to give obstacles that Ant-Man and the Wasp have to get around in a funny kind of way. So let's look at the cast. So Paul Rudd is Ant-Man. He is also a credited writer, and Paul Rudd's just if he's your cup of tea, I know some people don't like him. He is just a charm machine, and I love him. He's so secure in his skin. He's one of the few guys who's a real guy, and yet he can always play that feminine, campy stuff. He often plays gay roles because he just can switch to that and switch back because he's just so confident. Then you have Evangeline Lilly as the Wasp, and Evangeline Lilly is great, and I was a big fan of her from Lost, and then obviously in The Hobbit, and she just keeps going from strength to strength. And one of the things I really want to talk about is the chemistry between them two, because there's great chemistry in terms of just, the Wasp actually taking control and Paul Rudd having the confidence to go, yeah, she's kind of better than me. But the second thing is they obviously have a bit of a rom-com kind of romance thing going, and there's real heat. Like, they've got great electricity between the two of them. And compare it to Pratt and Howard in Jurassic World, where it's just dead. You really pick up on it, and that's a real skill for that to, be conveyed to the audience. Now, everyone in this, I've got to write them down, because normally, you say, oh, this person's really good. It'd be very easy to forget people. So coming back, you've got probably two generations. So you've got the younger people like Ant-Man, and then you've got the original Ant-Man and the original Wasp. So this is all talked about in the first 10 minutes. And so you've got Michael Douglas coming back as Hank Pym. The big one is Michelle Pfeiffer comes back as Janet Van Dyne. So she was the original Wasp. And you got Lawrence Fishburne as Bill Foster, who all three of them were working for S.H.I.E.L.D., doing quantum experiments, that kind of thing. So that's that one generation. And then thrown into the mix is Hannah John-Kamen, and she plays Ava Starr, otherwise known as the Ghost. So if you've seen any trailers, you see Ant-Man and the Wasp are trying to do something, and then there's this character who seems to be able to travel through time and space, and that's Ghost. And so comes on the end, so she's this whole new kind of villain. And then on top of that, you've just got this great array of supporting people. Walton Goggins, who's just a treasure from Justified, and real surprise, Randall Park plays Jimmy Woo, who's this kind of FBI guy, and he has some great scenes with Paul Rudd where they're just mucking around. But the outstanding one is Michael Pena returns as Lewis, and he is just so funny. But the best scene in the whole movie, so here's a movie, it's all CGI and people shrinking and doubling and doing all Ant-Man kind of stuff. The best scene is Michael Pena just telling a story in the way only Lewis can, but the way they've shot it is him telling it, but it's got all the characters involved in that story mouthing his words, and it is hilarious. It is really, really good stuff. It's excellent. Now, so you've got these charisma machines pumping it out. What are the problems? So some of the problems is that there really is no villain. There's no big bad, because Ghost really, once you identify she's got a problem and she's trying to get the tech from them, really these good guys, she could have just gone and asked for it and it probably would have been okay. So the plot is almost doesn't exist. It's really just shenanigans that they can get up to. The other thing which I think is really interesting is the film's theme is family. So if you think about all the other Marvel superhero films, like they always put country or the world or whatever big things above their friends and stuff. Like Iron Man would just throw Pepper Potts, in front of a tank if he thought he could save, some kids or an orphanage or something like that. This is the opposite. You get the feeling that really if there was a big threat going on, Ant-Man, he would go save his daughter and just let the other people sort it out. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's different. And that energy comes through. It's much more wholesome. because this film is set, really this is more a Civil War film than an Infinity War. It's a couple of years after Civil War, but before Infinity War. And so it's just got a different type of energy. It's really good. Okay, we're going to talk about spoilers, not that there's that much to spoil. I'll be back in a second. Okay, so as I said, for spoilers, there's not much to spoil. So really, unless, you know, the ending of the film is that they're able to go into the quantum realm and they get back Michelle Pfeiffer, who's great as the mother of the Wasp and the original Wasp. But there's really not that much. The big spoiler, I guess, is that at the end of the film, and that's that first credit scene, and I'm assuming if you're watching this, you've seen the film. The first post-credit scene has them going back into the quantum realm to do some stuff and to be able to help Ghost and heal her. And while Ant-Man is in the quantum foam, you hear the snap of Thanos, which we all know means half the purple in the universe are going to turn to dust. And then it goes up to the people who've been monitoring everything to get Ant-Man in, and they're all gone. So that's a really big kind of impact. And you kind of have a bit of a clue that, is this going to be important to the way, which I think in Infinity War 2, or whatever they're going to call it, how they're going to get back some of the heroes, because I don't expect that everyone's going to be dead. So how they're going to do that. And is part of it that Ant-Man is able to travel through this quantum realm and somehow maybe him and Doctor Strange do some sort of trick. So really that's it. There's not that, this is just a fun film. I think if you overthink it, you'd kind of do it a little bit of a disservice. Just go see it. It's a lot of fun. And you kind of need to see it if you want to know everything happening in Marvel. So that's it for today. Lots of films coming up. And I'm on Twitter at Guru Eden. And if you like what I'm doing, press the like. Then my videos go around more. Subscribe and then you always know what I'm doing. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.